The number of people dissatisfied with birth control is staggering. Let's talk about that. Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal Littlejohn. I'm a sociology professor and author of the book Just Get on the Pill, The Uneven Burden of Reproductive Politics, which I'm super excited about. And you can find a description and a link to go ahead and purchase it right down below. So I felt inspired to make this video because I was on NPR last week talking about the social history of birth control. And as folks called in, they were talking about how they felt about birth control. Some liked it, some didn't. And as it turns out, I've been a researcher studying dissatisfaction with birth control and women's general feelings about birth control for the last 10 years. And I decided I wanted to go ahead and make a video about dissatisfaction after I wrote a blog post on it because we don't give nearly enough attention to dissatisfaction with birth control, but it's a really big deal. So let's go ahead and walk through why I think that we should care about dissatisfaction. So first, lots more people are dissatisfied with birth control than you might think. I and my colleagues have been studying birth control for more than 10 years. And guess what comes up a lot in our interviews and surveys? Dissatisfaction. In fact, one of my studies found that 37% of young women between the ages of 23 and 44 who had ever used hormonal birth control had ever stopped it because they were dissatisfied. That's a pretty big deal, and I think it's wild that we don't talk about it more. I also think that we should care about people's dissatisfaction with birth control because it negatively affects their lives. In my study on women stopping birth control, I found that side effects were the primary reason that women stopped, and I dedicate a whole section of my book to talking about their experiences to give a voice to how dissatisfaction affects them. For some women that I talk about in the book, it would be ironic because they got on birth control so they could enjoy their sex lives freely, but side effects like bleeding between periods made it hard for them to feel comfortable. So there's a woman in a book whom I call Lauren who talks about her experiences being on birth control and having side effects to her birth control method, specifically as it relates to bleeding between periods. And so she said, I did the shot. I remember that was the first birth control method I tried. It was good. And actually, I think I might go back to it because the reason why I didn't want to go back was because I had spotting. So I was always having to wear a tampon because I hate wearing pads. And she goes on to talk about how the side effects that she had were challenging because she didn't want to wear pads and she liked to wear thongs or G-strings. And obviously that was hard for her if she was wearing pads. And so for her, the whole point of getting on birth control was so that she could have sex and not have to worry about pregnancy, right? So that she could actually enjoy her sex life. But because of the side effects that she was having, she wasn't even able to do that. And it affected how she experienced her sexuality. And lastly, we should care about people's satisfaction with birth control because the more recognition it receives, the more likely we can do something about it, right? When we don't say anything, when we ignore women's and people's dissatisfaction with birth control, it sends the message that things don't have to be improved. And we know that isn't the case. Mental and emotional health matter just as much as reproductive health. In efforts to develop birth control methods that affect sperm production, we see that there are painstaking efforts being taken to make sure that people can tolerate those methods and that they'll actually use them. Methods designed to affect egg production should absolutely be handled with the same amount of care so that we can make sure that people who are using methods like the pill and other prescription birth control methods also find their methods tolerable and feel like they can be satisfied using them. So those are my three reasons why I think that we should care about dissatisfaction with birth control and why I personally do. Obviously, there's many more. Maybe I'll make another video about that at some point. But anyway, I'll go ahead and stop there and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.